Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to be talking about finding a home base as a digital nomad with my guest, Camille Poire. Camille, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And I've got the place that you are in now behind me, Hoi An, Vietnam, for those who don't know. So
So do
jealous that
I.
you're there. I'm so jealous you're there and I'm not. It's a beautiful place. How are you enjoying it there?
It is a lot, actually. Didn't expect to like it as much. I came actually for the first time in January for 2 weeks and then decided to come back in March. And now it's my last few days here. So trying to make the most of it before leaving.
Well, how has the weather been there in March?
Much better than in January. So we made a good decision to come back because in January it was still raining season and it was raining every day. But it's getting really hot right now, actually. So the beginning of March was maybe a little nicer, a bit more comfortable because now it's reaching pretty high temperatures.
Oh wow. I know I left like mid-March and it was just getting to be this nice weather. And so pro
Yeah.
tip everyone, come to Hoi An, let's say the beginning of March. January and even February can be too rainy.
Yeah. And if you like actually swimming in the ocean and you want some beach time, then I guess from March on is a good time.
Right. Well, I think people might be confused a bit by the topic we're discussing today, finding a home base as a digital nomad, because it sounds like a bit contradictory. But let's talk about, so can you tell us about this idea of finding a home base? What is your background as a digital nomad? What led you to finding a home base?
Yeah, so basically, I've been a nomad. Well, it is debatable if I'm still a nomad, but I guess in my head I am. So I define still myself as a nomad. I think for me, it's more, a mindset and the fact that I can pack up any day and go travel anywhere I want with my job if I want to. So more than, if I have a home base or not. But so I was a full-time traveling nomad for, I think about, I don't even remember, seven years maybe, before I decided to find a home base. So at first I was nomading on my own for a few years. And then a few years in, I met my boyfriend. And then he was also in the process of becoming a nomad, was kind of spending time in Thailand. And then we decided to continue doing it together. So we were then full-time nomading together for a few years. And I guess we reached a point where we started thinking, okay, we really, enjoy this lifestyle, but we are feeling like sometimes we get a little bit tired. Sometimes we were also, the logistics of going from place to place and packing all the time and where to store things in between. Because, if you're going to Thailand and then to somewhere colder and you're not going to bring the same clothes and the same gear with you. So we were running a little bit into these questions of where to leave our stuff in between trips. And in general, I think we wanted a bit of a change of pace. So that's why we started thinking about buying, or well, I guess finding a home base, not necessarily buying initially, but it turned into buying. And it was a little bit of a process, but this is how we ended up buying a property, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about.
Yes, I am going to ask you about it, but I like this, description you were giving about, I don't know if I'm still a nomad or not. I would say that people can still be nomadic, but of course stay in one place a bit longer in the year, that maybe they're
Yeah.
calling their home base because they're storing things there. Like you said, I think a lot of people start out using their parents' place or a friend's place to do it. But over time, I don't know about you, I started feeling like I didn't want to fly halfway across the world and bother my parents necessarily or ask them to store huge things for me after I got
Yeah,
to a certain age. So yeah, but I think
exactly.
I think the first thing I want to ask you about your home base, we haven't said where it is yet, is what were some of the qualifications for you as to where you would stay for your home base, or what would make your home base?
Yeah, so for us, it was honestly at this point, I think back then, even one of the main criteria was having a community and having friends around. Because, there are all these locations that sound really appealing, like, I don't know, Tuscany in Italy, but we didn't want to be too isolated. So we wanted to have a nice community, both of locals and some, international expats, nomads, people we can also relate to, have a bit of the similar lifestyle and schedule as us. So that was probably one of the main things that we were considering. And then, in our final decision, because we did decide to buy something, and we are not really, because we've been so kind of on the margin of the system in a way, right? Because we don't have like stable jobs, and we don't really meet the criteria for a lot of mortgages that banks are willing to offer. So we had to buy in cash. So obviously that made the that made the price quite important. It needed to be affordable.
I'm sure you're not alone in that.
Yeah. And in our case, because we're both European, from the European Union, different countries within the EU, but it was also a lot easier for us to buy within the EU. And also, we wanted to be not too far from our families, so that, just a short flight away from both of our families, which was also something we took into account.
So let's reveal this. Where is your home base, Camille? Where did you buy this property?
Yeah, so surprise, we bought in Bansko in Bulgaria, which if people don't know about it, I think it is getting quite popular and famous within nomadic circles, but it's a small town in the mountains of Bulgaria, which is a ski resort. So it's actually yeah, it's pretty small. You've been there, Becky, so you know what I'm talking about. It's not a big place, but it is, in winter, it is quite, it gets much bigger because it's the main ski resort in Bulgaria, if not in the Balkans in general. So it does attract a lot of people, and it's also becoming more and more of a summer mountain resort as well. So it kind of has these two big seasons.
Great. Now, do you find could you stay in Bonsko any time of the year and be happy? Because a lot of people say, oh, it's not your home base if you're planning to leave it every winter because it's just terrible there or whatever. Is Bonsko a place you feel like you could stay year round or visit any time of the year?
Yeah, pretty much. I think the only months that we don't really like in Bansko, or like the only 2 months, are October, November, because that's usually when it rains. Most of the rain is concentrated over those 2 months in Bansko. So, but having said that, this year it almost didn't rain. We had an amazing kind of Indian summer. So we had a very warm and sunny autumn. But it depends. If you don't like winter, if you don't like snow, then you probably don't want to be in Bansko in winter. But on the plus side, you can ski, and it's one of the most affordable places to ski in Europe, maybe in the world. So yeah, it does attract a lot of people for that, including nomads. And spring is really nice. Usually the weather warms up really fast once the ski season is over. So we can already enjoy really nice temperatures. And summer is beautiful. Lots of hiking to do, mountain biking, all these mountain activities. And we also enjoy it then because it's not as hot as in Western Europe, in Portugal, Spain, France. The temperatures can go really crazy and it gets too hot. But in Bansko, it tends to stay around those, high 20 degrees. Celsius degrees to low 30s, but it doesn't really go much higher than that in general.
Okay, let's talk about price for you now. I know around the world, prices have really changed in the most recent couple of years. Also, the interest rates if you get a mortgage. But what can you expect if you want to buy property in a place like Bansko, price wise?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot very fast. Like I think it's happening a bit everywhere right now, but COVID has definitely brought a change. So when we bought our home base 3 years, just over 3 years ago, so it was in July 2019. Bansko was a bit of an anomaly. It was almost, error prices at that time because it had gone through a crisis, and basically the town had been overbuilt, and so apartments were being sold more or less at construction price or even under construction price. So it was really incredible. If you want, I can give an example. I can say how much we paid. I don't know if
Yeah, in 2019, if you want to say you can, as in it's going to shock people, I think.
Yeah. So in 2019, we bought, so it was a pretty big 2-bedroom apartment. It was a duplex, so over 2 floors, about 120 square meters, with a balcony, with mountain views, a fireplace, 2 bathrooms as well. And that we paid 33,000 euros for that. That was, however, it was finished, but it needed some renovation because it was in a complex that had been sitting empty for a few years. So it needed, to be refreshed. And it came, the bathrooms were done, but didn't have a kitchen, for example. So we had to custom build a kitchen. So I would say in total, we spent probably around 45,000 on it for the purchase, the renovation, and the furnishing.
Wow. I think when people hear this price for a 2-bedroom with balcony, with fireplace, they can understand that it is possible to buy it without a mortgage. If you could, even get a friend or a partner together to split the price with you. And what would you say?
A little bit.
I was going to say, what would you say now that it would cost for a 2-bedroom apartment in Bansko?
I think at this point, well, I know how much because we have sold our initial home to upgrade to a new one. So I know how much we sold it for, which I'm not sure I want to reveal.
Have you seen some of those prices that they're selling, like market prices right now in Bansko for 2 bedrooms, generally?
Yeah, so I would say a 2-bedroom nowadays it would start around, for a really basic 2-bedroom, small, probably start around, let's say 65 to 70,000. For a nice place that's a little bigger, more, better furnished, more modern, decorated, you would be looking at 80 to 100,000, I would say, currently. But it is still possible to find deals. It's just not as they're not as everywhere as they used to be. So now you have to look a bit harder. And 80,000 for a 2-bedroom, it's a lot more than it was 3 years ago, but it's still, compared to the rest of the world, the rest of Europe, it's still a pretty good deal for a ski resort in Europe.
I would say so. And I think congratulations on getting in early, but like you said, there's still space and room for people to get in there. And if you just want a 1-bedroom or even a studio, they are available. I would say, so generally speaking, because I know we don't want to only focus on Bansko because we're talking about finding a home base, but like you said, finding places with a lot of community. I would say from my own personal experience, I moved to Lisbon and chose Lisbon because I knew they had a lot of digital nomads. And as someone who was already a nomad coming in there, I knew, like you, there would be a lot of people with a similar mindset. And every Thursday they have a meetup there where all the nomads gather. And I thought, okay, I can go once a week and talk to people I know. So if you're looking generally around the world and you are a nomad now and you're thinking, I'm going to start like eventually slowing down and looking for a base to at least go for, let's say 3 to 6 months a year. I try to spend about 6 months in my base and go around from there. But yeah, look for that community and look for example, for me, I was able to get a mortgage because they would give mortgages to foreigners. You had to be a resident, which I had just become one, but still, it is not always the case that you can get a mortgage as a foreigner. So look for that when you're also thinking of your home base. I don't know. Oh, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
And of course, some destinations also can give you a visa or a way to stay in the country and maybe to have EU residency or residency somewhere else when you buy. So if that's also a factor for you, you can also look at those schemes, where you buy a property. I think in places like Montenegro and Greece, there might be options where if you buy a property for a certain amount, you can qualify to get some kind of long-term visa or residency.
And if you love a country, I mean, definitely look into what are the rules? What are the rules about buying? Are there loopholes or like cheap properties that are just a little more isolated? We have a common friend named Mike who ended up buying, he did have a Japanese partner at the time that this helped a lot, but he was able to buy a property in Japan for about, I think it was around at the time, 50,000 US dollars, 55,000. I'm sure there were other costs, but he through just using a website, he's not a resident of Japan, but Japan does allow buying property. Foreigners can own land, can own property. So look into these different countries. And now he goes there, as a tourist in Japan, you can be there for up to 90 days, leave, and then come back for another 90 days. So, look for the generous visa, like rules as well, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, community was so important for us. And this is kind of what drew us to Bansko in the first place. And when I was saying that it was a process for us to decide to get a home base, the first year, actually, it's funny because the first year we came to Bansko and we already had this idea of checking out the real estate market there because we'd heard so much about the low prices. But I think we weren't ready. So that first summer, we were thinking maybe we'll buy somewhere, and then we got there and it didn't feel right. So we just decided not to. And then we left. We went traveling for another year, and the idea kind of grew on us. I think that that winter, we did a lot of fast traveling. So we were kind of zigzagging from Paris to New York, back to Paris, then to Thailand. And it really exhausted us and we got jet lagged. And then we were like, okay, we need to slow down a little. So that's how kind of the need grew to have that base. And then we went back to Bansko the next year. And the community we'd found the previous year there had at least doubled in 1 year. And not just the Nomad community at the co-working where we were, hanging out, but also we realized that it felt like the town itself, even the local community. So there were more events, there were more people on the streets. It felt really dynamic, and we just felt like it's on the right trend. This place is becoming more lively. It's trending, and yeah, we just got this really positive vibe, and it convinced us that, okay, now we want to do it. So it took us over a year to get to that point where we felt we were ready and Bansko was ready for us, or we were ready for Bansko, I guess.
It was the same for me. I visited Lisbon in 2018 and 2019. And then in the pandemic, I thought Portugal might be a place I could enter. And I'm sure for everyone during the pandemic, they started feeling more of a need to have somewhere they could go to nest. I mean, luckily for you, you already had a place you could go. And I'm sure you were so grateful for that place in Bansko during that time. But maybe it's also a reason that some longer term digital nomads have started trying to get bases. And it's a great tip you gave. Like, yes, you need to spend multiple times in that place. How do you feel? Maybe how do you feel in different seasons when you're there? And is it trending? Because I think trending, that liveliness is really important to feeling like you want to keep returning. And I think, for example, I've never been to the country of Albania, but I personally feel like Albania is trending. I keep seeing it in Instagram. I keep seeing like or hearing people who just went there, they want to go there. And I researched and I found that Albania, you can buy property and land as a foreigner. You can get a 1 year tourist visa. So, I mean, if there's places you're thinking about that haven't exploded yet, start looking for things like that, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think what's really cool as well is that we were actually, I realize now, we were among the first to buy in Bansko, but we were the first of many. And what I love is that now there's so many more nomads who have decided, or expats, I guess, who have decided to make it their base as well. And it doesn't have to be buying, actually. We also know some long-term people who are based long-term in Bansko, they are renting by the year or, for on a long-term contract. So that's also an option. If you don't have the funds to buy or you don't want that commitment, you can also rent long-term there. And the rents are really affordable. So that's something else you can do. But yeah, now we have this community has grown not only of nomads passing by and who we can see at the co-working, but there are actually so many nomads now who are living there part-time part of the year like we do. And that's what I love. This is why when you ask, do we enjoy being there at any time of the year, what I do like is that we know that there is this year-round community, so it's not just seasonal, and that whenever we go back, there are going to be friends. We can just plug back into the social scene there, and our network of friends, and we can arrive and on day one we're having dinner with friends and catching up, and that's amazing. So nomads say, we read a lot about nomads having issues with loneliness and having to making friends and then leaving, and which of course is a part of the lifestyle, but the fact that you can go back to your home base where you know that you are going to be among people you like and catch up with friends is very important for us.
It's amazing. It's like coming home, and it should feel like coming home if it's your home base. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that you have
definitely.
that. You've built that in Bonsko. Now, another interesting thing that we actually both have in common, but we're going to talk more in detail even in future episodes of the show, is buying into co-living as part of like expanding your sense of your options of where you can go and stay a bit longer. So I wanted to ask you about this Swiss co-living that you've recently invested in.
Yeah. So co-living, first of all, is something that I've always been interested in. As much as we have our home in Bulgaria, we also, when we travel, we also really enjoy sharing with people. So we've been to a few co-livings, and we also like the idea of having these other smaller bases where we might want to go from time to time and spend a bit longer in. So I had a little bit of spare cash lying somewhere.
Always
So
good.
yeah, and then I was approached about this really cool crowdfunding project, which was to co-invest. So several nomads co-investing into turning an unused hotel in the mountains of Switzerland into a co-living for nomads. And that sounded really cool. So I said yes. And now it's opening. I mean, it's actually open. There are already a few people living there. I'm going to visit very soon, within the next few months, to also go and help in person and kind of plug into that community there as well. But I think it's what really drew me to this project was that Switzerland is not really a destination that most nomads feel is well, they feel it's out of their reach because it's so expensive, right? It has this reputation of being really expensive, and it's not so accessible. But what I love is that this co-living is gonna give nomads an option to go to Switzerland without, breaking the bank. um, and yeah, it's opening. It's just opened this month, and if anyone is interested in checking it out, there is an opening offer. So in April and May, you can stay there with a 50% discount. So you can go check the website, and you'll see the prices there. But yeah, it's a really great deal in the spring to get the community going there.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I'm the same. I thought Switzerland was out of reach for me. I've still only been once in my life for a couple of days. But this co-living is in the town of Lied, Switzerland, right? And it's Swiss Alps co-living, if I have that correctly.
Yeah, it's called Swiss Alps co-living. Very original, but it says exactly what it is. It's actually the website is swissalpscoliving.ch. That's the Swiss domain extension. And yeah, you can see already what it looks like. There's lots of pictures and testimonials from the first people who are already staying there. It's in the part of Switzerland that is just at the border with France and Italy. So that's really cool because you can actually take day or half day trips to both of those countries as well, using it as a base, as well as travel more within Switzerland. And Lied is actually a ski resort as well. There are several little ski resorts around, which are very affordable for Switzerland. Probably, yeah, the best priced ski resorts, maybe even in the Alps in general. And then if you're looking for a bigger ski resort, it's also very close to Verbier, which is one of the biggest ones in Switzerland.
Oh, so I like that it's so close to France and Italy because I think pro tip, you could go to the supermarket in Italy and
Yeah,
drive over the border and use that food in Switzerland because I've heard it's very
exactly.
expensive
Yeah,
and to
exactly.
shop there in Switzerland. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, that's
I'm
sorry.
I'm curious. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Camille. How long what is like the deal with you being able to stay at the co-living? Do you get like 1 month every year with what you invested, or how is that going to work for you?
So for me, I'm actually getting 1 week a year,
Okay. Yes.
which doesn't seem like much, but I'm not investing. We've broken the cost into several shares, right? And I'm only buying one share, which is not a huge um, price. So I get 1 week for that, but we're also going to run it as a co-op in a way. So we're all getting involved to design it, to work on it, to promote it, create the website. It's all done by the group of co-investors. And we also have a system where every pro bono work that we do on it, every hour that we give of our time to work on the space, is also, we're going to have this token system where we get tokens that we can then redeem in a way against time, free time there. So in the end, probably be more than a week. And if we also want to go and work on it in person, kind of volunteer in a way, we also can stay there for free.
Great. So I like this because it's an alternative to renting for a whole year somewhere as your base or buying property. You can find these
Yeah.
projects. I think there are more and more of them out there, co-livings that are trying to crowd fund or they need investors. And in exchange, they will give you free time to live there. Or like you said, you can work for free and then get more time. So this could
Yeah.
be a way, like you said, to access something you didn't think was in your reach financially. Or like I can tell you briefly about my own experience because we bonded over this commonality.
Yeah.
I actually had always thought it would be great to be connected with a farm in some way, but I thought I can never take care of this farm by myself. but I found a property in Portugal, which is nice because it's, near my own home base, where I can go 1 month a year. I ended up investing in, same as you, I got some tokens, and I can go for 1 month a year in one of their accommodations options. And yeah, get time on a farm, but not alone, but with this community that's being built around the farm. I'm going to do a future episode about the farm as well with someone who is more into the project than I am. And yeah, I just to make people aware, like we're discussing, that there are many options for finding a base. And once you're connected with that place in Switzerland or the farm in Portugal, these places may be able to store, I'm not going to promote this in a big way, but they might be able to store something that you can't actually fit into your own place that you're staying somewhere else, where maybe you're staying just in hotels or you're going around the world when you're not there. But maybe they're going to store, like, I don't know, maybe you have a keyboard or you have something big that, you can't keep. So it's great to leverage these places because you build that relationship with them.
For sure. I mean, I think at the Swiss co-living, we are also going to have ski lockers, for example. So if the investors, the co-investors want to bring their own skis and then leave them there the rest of the year, that's going to be possible. So that's also a little perk.
That's like one thing I can never put in my luggage when I'm as a nomad going around. Like, I'm not putting all my ski gear in my suitcase, or like same with scuba diving, right? Like you can't carry around all that stuff. So
exactly.
Yeah, we got to find ways to, start to make our lives, like branch our lives out a bit, out of that suitcase only lifestyle, but yeah, building communities along the way. So thank you for sharing your experience. I hope that our conversation inspires people to maybe look at things in a different way if they've been considering their own home base, or start doing research about places that you like. What are the rules for owning property, or what are the communities that are already being built in those places that you can tap into?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Camille, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go? If people want to follow you, also, where can they go?
Why would they want to do that? No, I'm joking.
You're a wealth of knowledge, Camille.
Yeah, I can be found on Instagram at Camille in Wonderlands. I guess you can write it somewhere.
Yes.
But I'm not very active anymore. So you can also look for me on Facebook. That's probably the best place to connect with me these days. And just message me on Messenger.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Camille. Wish you a wonderful time in Bonsco and your rest of the time that you have there in Vietnam as well.
Thanks. Have a good time in Japan.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.